everyone. Thanks for joining us on another kid-free weekend. I'm Jeff, and that's it. Jennifer wasn't feeling that well, but I had to do a podcast today, so I have someone else who's going to co-pilot this with me here. This is going to be a different sort of podcast to start with, but we'll see where the conversation takes us. I have someone on the line who I know from Twitter under the username the Nerdy Vixen. So, Vixen, say hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for calling in today. I had to talk to you. I've known you on Twitter for quite a while. We share a fandom with another podcast that we used to listen to together and all that stuff. Some community background. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about you because you are the internet's new latest and greatest celebrity. Or maybe not you, but sort of you by association. There is someone that you should all look up on Twitter. Her name is Abigail, and she is definitely not a haunted doll. Now, there will be a picture associated with this podcast so you can get just a glimpse of the glory that is Abigail. So I'd like to hear the story of where Abigail came from. And she's taken Twitter by storm. The world even. You're showing up all over the internet now. So did you make Abigail the totally not haunted doll?
No, I actually saw her at an antique store about 20 minutes from where I live. And I was in there with my husband and my mother-in-law, and I walked by the case that she was in, and I was just absolutely floored at how creepy and weird this particular doll looked. And this was back in March. And ever since then, I just kept thinking, I really want that weird doll I saw. I don't know why, but she's just so fascinating. I want her.
Do you think that that she played a role actively in your dreams, your thoughts? Do you think she had a way of staying with you that whole time?
I kind of do. I sort of think maybe she does have some kind of a spirit, and that spirit was lonely and wanted a friend who would accept her despite her weird looks.
So hopefully, if you're listening to this, you have looked at your phone or web browser, wherever it is you're viewing this, because you'll see a picture of Abigail. She's got cute little button eyes and lovely brown skin. She's beautiful. She has a unique look. She doesn't look like most dolls.
No, she doesn't.
She's not made of she's not like an old school porcelain doll. She's not made of plastic like newer dolls would be. But she called out to you and you said, this perhaps potato sack. Is it potato sack? What is it? Just brown, whatever she is. She needs a home. So her soul now has entered your domain.
Yes.
Now you said you have a husband.
Yep.
Do you still have a husband?
I do.
Did he know in advance? Did he know that you were going back out to that store? Did he know that you've been thinking about Abigail?
He did. And he was like, are you sure about this? Do we really need this doll?
Okay, so he was cautious. That's good. It's good that someone is, because, in most of the movies that we see, there's usually someone who's the voice of reason. No offense. But since then, you posted a couple pictures, and you named her Abigail, correct?
Yes.
Or did she tell you her name?
No, we actually kind of thought of this name based on another doll.
Okay. Another doll that is maybe haunted?
No, there's a television show called Mr. Pickles.
Oh, okay. No, I was... I mean, look, I'll be honest. I was thinking of Annabelle. So silly me. I want to hear about this. Tell me, Mr. Pickles, you say.
Mr. Pickles is a cartoon about a demonic dog. And there's a sheriff character that is a little weird, and he has a doll named Abigail.
I'm going to look this up right now. Go on.
Oh yeah, the show is on Hulu, and it's amazing.
Okay,
we just were thinking of doll names, and that was the first one that came to our minds.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Pickles. I see at least 4 seasons on Hulu. Okay, so I'm going to have to look that up. Wow, adult animated sitcom. Good to know. Don't show it to the kids. Okay.
Right.
All right, so now Abigail took the world by storm. You tweeted out a couple pictures of her, and all of a sudden you were inundated with likes and retweets, comments, and next thing you know, Abigail made her own Twitter account. Now, how does a doll accomplish such a feat?
With my help, because she has no fingers.
Okay. Good. And she's collected a modest following that seems to be growing every day.
Oh, yeah.
How is she handling her fame?
She's pretty modest, so she doesn't really notice. She just replies back to everyone.
Well, that's very nice. She's got good Twitter etiquette. Mm-hmm.
She does.
And your cat? You have a cat that has been in some of these pictures.
Yep. We actually, the first thing we did when we brought her home was set her in front of the cat, because he's really chill. And we thought, if he hissed at this doll, we're taking her back.
Good point. Do you think the antique store would have taken her back anyway? Did they seem relieved when you made the purchase?
They actually set her in the bag with her face down.
Oh,
so I think they were pleased to get rid of her.
That's just mean. So the cat's okay with everything that's going on in the house. That's good to know. So maybe Abigail is not a malevolent force.
I don't think so.
Well, that's good. That's comforting. But she does have something that appears to be a rather large blood stain on her dress. Have you figured out what that is yet?
No, not yet. I'm still thinking I want to take her to someone who can really take a better look at it than I can.
Is the Antiques Roadshow still a thing? Because I would love to see that happen.
I think they are.
Oh, okay. So that's your goal now. You got to go wherever they are, because they're totally going to wind up on TV.
Yes.
All right. So, Abigail, what does she care about? What does she talk to you about?
She just cares about love and friendship.
Oh, well, that's amazing. Okay. And she hasn't told you to murder anyone.
Not yet.
Okay, good. I get worried. I see a haunted doll and it's really something. Okay. So that all said, and everybody should go find, okay, so it's Abigail_haunted, which is Abigail, the totally not haunted doll on Twitter. Everyone should check this out.
Be careful. There are actually like multiple fan accounts that are pretending to be her.
That's how big you are now. That's amazing.
Yes.
I mean, I see a million like Donald Trump parody accounts that use his exact profile picture and so on. So there's already people imitating you like that. Or I'm sorry, Abigail.
Yeah, that's really weird.
It is. Oh, truly internet's newest celebrity, Abigail the doll. All right. So the other reason then I want to talk to you is because I saw you post something the other day about sort of a reminiscing post from a time when you attended was it specifically a Pride Day protest or rally, or was it something else?
It was actually a rally against hate.
Oh, well,
and
there you go.
I want to say it was in response to the shootings in Charlottesville. And we had been hearing that the KKK had some involvement in our community, and we wanted to throw this rally together in support of the families in Charlottesville, as well as in support of people in our community who may feel threatened by those presences.
Well, that's great. This is, we are now in Pride Month. And I've got no personal experiences that would lead me to anything LGBTQ, et cetera, et cetera. I guess I'm an ally. So for me, I just think I want my kids to grow up in a place where they can feel comfortable with whoever and whatever they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're still not quite there. I assume you've seen the headlines about things like the straight pride parade. This is maybe going to take place in Boston. I'm not 100% sure if they got their clearance and are moving forward or not. What does a straight pride parade mean to you?
Well, first of all, I found out that it's being put together by the alt-right. So right then and there, I know that this parade they're putting together is all about bigotry and hatred. It's not even about being proud of being straight. It's about offending people.
So it's a giant troll, then, is what it is.
I guess in a way it would be considered a troll. I think that those guys have nothing but really harmful reasons for doing what they do.
But they're called the Super Happy Fun Brigade or something like that.
Oh dear.
That's the group organizing it. Super Happy Fun something or another. So their position, I believe, is something like, is it straight people deserve to be proud too? Gay people have never been marginalized.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know. It just seems kind of crazy to me.
Well, I think the history of Pride dates back to, there was some kind of a riot. I can never remember the name of it or where it took place, but a bunch of drag queens were being abused by the police. So they put together this rally and parade to show them that they're not going to hide in the shadows.
Yeah, I think that was the Stonewall riots.
Yes, that was it.
That was in New York City. Yeah, I was just looking that up now. Greenwich Village in Manhattan. So that happened in 1969. And it was a club where gay and trans people could hang out. And it was a very strange situation because it was actually like a mob front. Like the mafia was laundering money through this club, and just maybe to keep the wrong people away, had decided to set it up as this haven for gay and trans people, which normally the mafia would not be into, I think.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that eventually led to police crackdowns. And yeah, so the riots happened, and that was the birth of the Pride movement.
Yeah. So it's like that right there is proof they've been marginalized from the beginning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's absolutely asinine. But we're talking about the same people that say that that deny the existence of institutional racism, right?
Yeah.
They just don't want to see the truth, I think, is the biggest part of it.
Either that or they just don't want other people to see the truth anymore. If they can just brainwash enough people, it's it's so easy sometimes to manipulate large groups of people.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the information flow. One of the other things that showed up in the news in the last week or two, it kind of came and then went, and I just saw it come up again, was this interview with this lady who was at a town hall meeting for Justin Amash, this guy who's come out as saying, I'm a Republican, but I'm for impeachment. And her point of view, she listened to Justin Amash speak. And then when she was interviewed, she said, I had no idea that there was anything in the Mueller report that paints the president in a bad light, that indicates that he could have done anything wrong. I had no idea. And she was just kind of confused more than anything. Not necessarily angry yet, hopefully is by now after processing the information, but had not just hadn't heard it. So that's what I think a lot of it is the information flow. It's about where you get your information from, whether it's racism, homophobia, or just the general state of the world and our corrupt president.
Yeah.
You're not a pro-Trump person, are you? I didn't think you were.
Not.
Okay. I guess I didn't ask that question first, but I just want to make sure. Okay. So how do you feel about the impeachment? How do you feel about impeachment talks? Should we impeach, or should we just let it go and try to beat him in 2020?
I feel like impeachment would help maybe be able to beat him in 2020. Because even though, like, I remember Clinton was impeached, but it didn't mean that he was taken out of office.
Right.
And he probably, if he hadn't been in his second term, he probably could have ran again, despite being impeached. So I just think it's put on your record that you're not a good person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it did taint his legacy in the long term, but it did seem like it didn't hurt his popularity in the short term. So that that does present sort of a tricky option there. But I do think that there's a major difference between. So President Clinton's stuff was personal wrongdoings.
Yeah.
And I think, they claimed abuse of power, maybe for asking Monica Lewinsky to lie about it. And that's not cool. I'm not okay with that. But there is a difference between that and treason.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right? I mean, we have someone in power, someone who is our president, and many people around him who he appears to be compromised by a foreign power.
Yeah.
Is that reasonable to say, you think?
I think so.
Because, I mean, I don't want to be like, he's out and out working for Putin, but it kind of seems like it.
Yeah. And not only that, but his son and his businesses all have connections. So it's like, even if he hasn't specifically had any dealings with Putin, the people around him and could easily say he was a part of it.
Yeah. Well, and there's already been, 30 some convictions of people surrounding Trump, and right. So what do we do? How do we get out of this, do you think?
Well, the first thing we need to do is find candidates that can actually beat him in 2020. I feel like the Democratic Party has been just throwing anybody out there right now. And a lot of them are not going to be strong enough to deal with the rhetoric and keep their cool and convince people, not only fellow Democrats, to vote for them, but to convince Republicans to switch sides and vote for them in the election.
Yeah, that's going to be key.
Yeah.
I do wonder, there's been a lot of debate about whether or not Democratic candidates should go on Fox News. Because on one hand, they're probably going to spin anything you say into something negative and horrible. But on the other hand, maybe it's the only way to reach certain people. What do you think?
Yeah, that is tricky, but I think they do need to get on there, because the way they handle themselves might be enough to convince some people that they're good.
Yeah, I mean, I think, was it Bernie? Bernie did a town hall and they were talking about Medicare for all, and he got a standing ovation from a crowd of people that might be likely Democratic voters, but came out with Fox News, were willing to be in a Fox News town hall and may watch Fox News themselves. But yeah, I mean, Fox viewers got to see that. And that I thought was kind of an amazing moment.
Yeah, I do feel like Bernie has a lot of ideas that everyone can get on board with. I feel like some of those aren't party issues. They're just human issues.
Yeah. He is a very polarizing figure, though.
Yeah.
I've been finding at least, and I know we're not supposed to say that Twitter is exactly a snapshot of America. I think statistics will show otherwise, but at least on Twitter, Bernie has as many people cheering him on and loving him as people that are kind of hesitant about him or just flat out hate him. Who do you think who are your front runners? Do you have one or a few different people that you're really enjoying looking at in 2020?
I was a Bernie supporter before, and I do love him, although I feel like he's so old.
He's getting up there.
But it's but I also really love Elizabeth Warren, and I like Mayor Pete.
Well, that's actually my top three as well. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
we came out for Bernie in 2016. We preferred him over Hillary, and I think a lot of it was honestly, a lot of it was the same reason that Trump wound up winning the Republican nomination, was that We wanted something a little bit different. Not that Bernie isn't establishment. He's been doing politics his whole life, but a very different point of view than, part of the Clinton political dynasty, right?
Yeah. She's got a lot of negative things behind her.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of debate as to how much of that is reality and how much of that is conservative propaganda. And I try to give the benefit of the doubt, but I think there's enough reasonable evidence to say that, like, the Clinton family isn't, pure as freshly fallen snow.
No.
And I'm not even sure, does Bernie have any scandals besides sometimes just saying the wrong thing to groups of children about, like, there's these weird videos that have resurfaced of him doing like a public access TV show. Have you seen these?
Not yet.
He's like in front of a group of children and starts like listing off a bunch of like, here's what people, here's stereotypes about black people, and here's stereotypes about Jews, and here's stereotypes about Asian people. And he just like starts rattling off all these horrible things that people, say or feel about certain types of groups of people or religions and colors. And then his point is to try to explain to the kids that these things are wrong. But it still comes across as just like a little, whew, I mean, even 40 years ago, you seemed like sort of a crazy old man. So, I mean, look, I think the best thing about Bernie is that he's driving the party left.
Yeah.
Which I think we needed.
The other thing is he's getting younger people who don't normally care about politics invested as well. And he's saying the things that they all want. And I'm seeing a lot of younger millennials and the Zennials, Generation Y, whatever they're called now.
The hell is a Zennial?
That's what they're calling the kids born after the millennials.
Oh, gosh. No, I hadn't heard that one yet. Zennial.
Yeah.
God. All right.
He's getting them excited, which is funny to think of an older person getting young people excited, but he is.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing in that regard, given that he is the oldest possible person that could run for president.
Yeah.
And that's been a fascinating thing. But then, on the other hand, some of these candidates, we just watched the most recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher. And his guest this week was Andrew Yang. And Andrew Yang came across really well. It seems like people are trying to paint him as kind of a crazy dude, but his biggest thing that he's running on is universal basic income. Are you familiar with his plan?
I don't think so.
His plan is we will use something like $1.5 trillion, which is a lot of money, to start this program where every adult receives $1,000 a month from the government. And it doesn't matter if you're rich or poor or somewhere in the middle, everybody gets $1,000 a month. And his reasoning behind this is, A, we need to set up a minimum standard of living, and this will help because people, especially people at the bottom, need help. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. But then also a lot of this money, most of this money will just come straight back into the economy as people buy goods and services. It'll create new jobs, whether it's, manufacturing or retail or whatever. As people pump this money back into the economy, the government really won't be losing much of anything because we'll get it back, whether it's through sales taxes, probably more than anything. And then employment tax, other payroll taxes as more people get jobs. And it's kind of a fascinating idea.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when people get their tax returns.
And it's a shopping spree all of a sudden, right?
Yeah. I was trying to think there was something that happened during the Bush era and people had gotten money back.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. There was actually, gosh. Okay, let's see. When Bush was running for re-election, he promised everybody would get a check. It was kind of a shady way to boost your voting numbers, but it worked. It was certainly effective politics. He was saying everybody gets a rebate, and it was like $500 or something in the mail.
Yeah. And that was meant to use to boost the economy as well.
Yes. But it wasn't like it was free money, though. It was like a tax credit or something like that. So some people had to pay it back later, or people just got like a smaller tax return, I think, that same year. But it did get people out there shopping, didn't it?
Yeah. I think I actually used mine to buy something I wanted.
Yeah. Well, why wouldn't you? Because if you're already paying rent and you've got food, basically on the table, you could maybe improve the place you're living, or you could buy better food that's more nutritious. But a lot of people will be like, well, I've always wanted a new TV.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to make those decisions for yourself. But over time, if the universal basic income thing was a reality, that shopping spree would maybe start frivolous, but probably become important stuff later on down the line, I would think.
Yeah, especially if, people who really needed that money to support their families had it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could certainly use it. We got a lot of kids, and some of them are going to go to college soon. So yeah, and Andrew Yang has intrigued me now. Let's see, Pete Buttigieg. He's another favorite in our house. Kamala Harris.
Last year, I went to a Democratic brunch in Springfield, and Joe Biden was supposed to come and be the speaker, but he fell really ill like a couple days before he was supposed to come down, and so they had Pete come and speak. None of us knew who he was, but he had us all, we had a standing ovation afterwards. He moved everybody, and from that moment on, I was like, oh, that kid should run for president someday. And then sure enough, he did.
Well, that's awesome.
He's only like a year or two older than me, so.
Just old enough to run for president, pretty much.
Yep.
Well, how do you feel about that? His platform is generational change. So that's a big difference from Bernie Sanders, who is the old generation. But Pete's coming at it from the perspective of being a millennial. Do you think America's ready for a millennial president?
I think so, as long as it's someone like him who has a presence. He's got his shit together. He has military experience. He's a mayor. He has a good head on his shoulders, I think. And I think he's fine.
This is something I find myself questioning a lot. Do you think military experience is important for becoming president?
I think so, simply because you are the head of the military, and having knowledge of how things go in the field and what war is like would help. I think it would make you less of a warmonger.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to spend all of the money on that.
Yeah, there is that. It does seem like some people that have been our president find it way too easy to send people off to die. And maybe part of that is that they haven't served and that they have no idea what it would be like.
Yeah, and I think someone like him, he's probably even seen what happens with these drone strikes. Seeing the decimation of innocent people, he might be less likely to use drones as well.
Are you anti-drone?
I kind of am. I feel like there's just too much room for error. And having a human on the other side of that, it's just scary to me.
It traumatizes the people that are running those drones. They wind up, it's a fascinating psychology, is that even though they're doing stuff from a distance and, you're seeing everything through spy satellites or infrared cameras, and you still wind up with PTSD knowing that you have pushed the buttons and moved the joysticks that wind up getting people killed.
Yeah. Would you ever watch Arrested Development?
I do. I was
when they gave Buster and he thought he was playing a video game.
Right.
I think they'd have to do that.
It's a very isn't that how Ender's Game was too, where in the sci-fi world, Ender thought he was playing a video game, but he was actually destroying whole civilizations with waves of his hand. Yeah, I mean, that'll mess with a person. That'll stay with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about, since you mentioned him, Joe Biden? He is the polling front runner. Bernie Sanders is kind of neck and neck with him right now. And I think, at least I saw for the Iowa caucus, Pete Buttigieg is in third place right now. So how do you feel about Joe?
He's too much of a career politician to me. And the creepy sexual harassment stuff just really put a sour taste in my mouth for him.
Well, I think
I used to like little Uncle Joe, but I don't anymore.
Yeah. That stuff, and I'm a guy, so I feel like my opinion doesn't matter anywhere near as much, but that stuff didn't bother me as much as some of the other things, like, the Hyde Amendment, let's say, where has now come out against this notion. And for anyone listening that's not aware, so the Hyde Amendment said that federal funds cannot be used for abortion. So people that are receiving Medicaid, that kind of assistance, they can't then go and have an abortion unless they pay for it out of pocket. So he supported that back in the day, and now sort of caving into pressure, he's coming out against it, saying he sort of sees the light and realizes that, women's reproductive freedom is important. But maybe that also kind of plays into the inappropriate sniffing and or touching moments. Where, how much credit can we give someone for growing up in a different time when maybe touching a woman's shoulders while at a campaign event or something wasn't considered a big deal?
I kind of look at it as like, people can change, but you can't necessarily blame your environment for the way that you think, because we all have our own individual brains and our own individual situations that we've lived through. And it would only be acceptable, I think, if you lived in a bunker. No, you never saw the outside world. You never saw how things happen. It's like, to me, I can't fathom, even if you grew up in a racist family, seeing the stuff you see on the news and still believing whatever somebody else told you was right. We all have free will.
Yes. Yeah. Joe's a confusing one for me, because it would be nice to win. And he does seem to have a pretty decent chance of taking down Trump. But on the other hand, he makes a lot of gaffes. If they get into a debate situation, maybe Trump could get him flustered, and he can wind up saying some stupid stuff that becomes like sound bites, and those sound bites travel far. I mean, it could be like Howard Dean from whatever that was, 1992 all over again. Remember that one? He had the ha noise into the microphone, and that destroyed his campaign. And he would have been a great president.
We've heard the things that Biden has said on a hot mic. Right. It's not new, but is he the guy that could beat Trump? I don't know. We very much take here at the Kid Free Weekend, we go with the vote blue no matter who philosophy. Yeah. It didn't matter 2 years ago that we preferred Sanders over Clinton, because we were going to vote for Clinton no matter what. And that really didn't even make a difference if it was Donald Trump or if it was Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio. I mean, they're all kind of monsters, just in different ways. Do you think, though, that we can get through this? 23 different candidates. Everybody's got an opinion, and we all tend to feel very strongly about our favorite candidates. So, if Joe gets the nod, or if Bernie gets the nod, or if Pete gets the nod, we have all these different people that would be maybe crestfallen that their candidate didn't get through. Do you think that we'll be able to make vote blue no matter who a national trend? I hope so. We've been able to do that really well on the state level. So it's just a matter of getting people excited on the national level.
Yeah, the 2018 elections were very exciting. I gotta say, and didn't always turn out right. Stacey Abrams, I mean, the stuff that was happening, in some states, people were having a real hard time voting, and that tends to play well into Republican hands. But if we turn out enough people, I guess, you just can't deny it forever, right? If the numbers are big enough.
Well, I know one thing from my own county. We're pretty split, although I think it's like 52% Republican versus 48% Democrat. But in our county board and all the positions, they've been Republican for decades. And what we find is that the Democrats not only don't go out and vote as much, but the Republicans are like gung-ho super fanatics about voting. So the ones that are here, they go out and vote the most. So it really is a matter of getting people to the polls. It's
really something, isn't it? I mean, I wonder what the philosophy is that drives that kind of voter turnout, because we're all into democracy. We all love freedom. We all know that voting is an important civic responsibility. Why do the Republicans have such a higher percentage of voter turnout?
I wish I knew. That would be the case to crack. We can figure out their secret.
Yeah, but now, of course, on the other hand, Hillary Clinton did win the popular vote by like 3 million. So a lot of this is that weird shell game of shifting things around to try to get the Electoral College in your favor. Yeah. Who do you think, or how do you think we can get rid of that Electoral College? Do you think we have a pathway for that?
I'm not sure, because they came out to make sure that all the voting was fair and the bigger states didn't have more votes than the smaller states and all that. But it seems like it's really going against us now, that they're not picking the people that their states are voting for. They're voting on their own terms, which is like, we need those people to be our voices. And they're not. I think some of it might be their pockets are getting lined. I don't know why it's turning out that way, but I feel like if there's yet another election that goes the same way as the last one, there are going to be more people gunning to get rid of it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but a few years back, I think 2012, Donald Trump himself came out against the Electoral College. Saying that it was a archaic machine that was past its time, and now I don't know if you know this, but
half black president.
Well, maybe, but yeah, it's. I mean, now that Donald Trump won, though, he's staunchly in favor of the Electoral College and how quote unquote strong his victory was, despite losing by 3 million votes to Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just feels like another relic of an old machine that sort of made sense maybe once upon a time, but ultimately is hurting us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand having 2 senators per state, but the Electoral College, the way it's broken up, doesn't really make any sense anymore.
Yeah, I think the bicameral thing, the 2 senators per state and then the representatives based on population, I do think that makes a lot of sense, because we do have different cultures in every state. And those different cultures deserve to be represented, even if some of them are abhorrent. But the Electoral College does, someone did the math, I saw it recently, like a person in Wyoming has a vote that counts like 10 times more than a person in California, which is where we live. And that, it's a little crazy, but also like it has made it at times, not now, but at times in my life, it has made it harder for me to feel like voting. It's like, well, yeah, whatever. Right. California is going to go blue, and, it's really not going to be a factor in the election. Nobody runs here. There's, we don't have, the 50 state campaign going on most of the time, except for fundraising. Yeah.
Well, that was actually my mindset in 2018. I admit it, and I feel kind of bad for it, but I knew Illinois was going to be a blue state. Mm-hmm. So I voted for Jill Stein. Because she was more closely aligned to what Bernie's policies were. And so I was like, I'm going to stick it to the man and vote for a third party. And my party, I'm part of my local Democratic Party, and they were like, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah. Where is Jill Stein today?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like I saw something a few months back too that was like implying that Jill Stein was actually compromised by Russia or something like that. And I don't know if that was Republican propaganda to try to justify something about 2016 or if it was something legitimate. I have no idea. But I guess I understand. Yeah. I mean, I do think that happened in 2016.
Yeah.
Was it Gary Johnson as well?
Yeah, I think so.
Was siphoning off protest votes from people that just weren't interested in sort of the standard Democratic Republican fight.
Yeah. I sometimes think we do need a more than two parties because you sometimes feel like you're voting between a douche and a turd sandwich.
That's a South Park reference?
Yeah.
Am I getting that right? Okay.
It's my favorite to describe them because it's so accurate.
Yeah, it is. And that gets people turned off from politics, but it does work really well for the two parties that are established.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that we have any major third-party contenders this time around. There was Howard Schultz, who was threatening to run, but he's been very quiet recently.
But see, that's something about Bernie that I'm a little frustrated about. He's been an independent for so long. He identifies as a socialist. Why he didn't just vote or run for the DSA and, be that third party to shake things up?
Well, I guess you could say the same thing about AOC, right? She is very much an out and out Democratic socialist, but she still ran as part of the Democratic Party. So maybe, I don't know. I mean, I guess they're trying to change the Democrats from within, which I guess I appreciate because the moderation, the compromises, like like Joe Biden's whole career, giving in, like Clarence Thomas hearings, you've got that whole stuff, sort of downplaying Anita Hill's testimony and leaving other accusers waiting in the wings and just calling it quits and putting it to a vote. You got the Hyde Amendment. You've got views that seem to be born either, I don't know, like either he's more right leaning than he wants to admit, or he just compromises too hard. And people like Bernie and AOC, they just don't want to compromise anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like when you're part of a party, you have that party's values. And if somebody votes for you and you get elected for that party, you need to stick with your values. And if your values change that easily, you got to question why. Was somebody greasing your palms? Did you have a change of heart? Why are you going against the party that put you in office?
Right. You should be listening to your constituents, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times,
that you're representing.
Yeah. And instead, a lot of times it's the machine. The machine comes first.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even say that about Nancy Pelosi, who I have loved watching her run circles around Trump these last couple of years, or this last year. But she, as like the move to impeach, right? So she is sort of trying to keep everybody in her house in line, even though a lot of the representatives that we have are representing districts that we want accountability. We want the impeachment done, but Nancy thinks that it's politically not necessarily the best move.
I know Elizabeth Warren is putting the petitions out there. I signed one of her petitions to get him impeached, so she's not stopping.
She's pretty great. I love that she has plans for everything.
Yeah, and she's been very vocal and very straightforward. We know what she's running with, and she's not going to veer from that.
Right. That's a good point. She's not one that's going to be apt to compromise either, is she? And
that may be to her, I heard that as well when it gets down to things that she should compromise on, but she's being stubborn. But right now, I'd rather her stubborn than Trump stubborn.
Yeah, very true. You're right. I mean, that's another person that won't compromise at all, right?
Yeah.
I guess there's goods and bads to those kind of situations. I suppose it all depends on what we believe in. Like, what's Elizabeth Warren's take on healthcare? Is she Medicare for all, or is she something else? Do you know?
I think she's on board with that.
Okay. I mean, she's a pragmatist, and it does ultimately make the most sense. I mean, there's plenty of economic studies that show that a single payer option doesn't cost everybody more money in the long run, right?
Yeah.
Like,
we see it over in Europe.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and there are some systems that maybe aren't as perfect. Britain, there are reasonable complaints about the National Health Service, but there are plenty of countries that have managed to do it right.
Yeah.
And
I used to work for a healthcare company, an insurance company. I used to process claims.
Boo. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. I watched so many people just get boned by the industry because we would only pay for certain things and we wouldn't cover all of it, and their copay and their out of pocket were nuts. And I felt terrible. I hated working there.
Well, I'm glad you got out.
Yeah, it just sucked too much of my soul away. I had to leave.
I think one of the things that fascinates me about the whole debate is, like, I've heard it said many times that while a country like Finland or something may be able to incorporate socialized medicine into their society and do it successfully, that America's too big. That we're too big for a system like that. And like, we already have Medicare anyway, and it covers the whole country at a certain age. But also, it bothers me when politicians and people, when they sell America short. It's like, why do we think it's okay to expect so little of our government that we can't trust it? Can't we elect people that say we want to do government right instead of people that they're like, vote for me because government doesn't work and I'm going to prove it?
Yeah.
That drives me crazy.
Yeah, I see that too. And the people that say, oh, we don't want government, but then they run for government and then they just do everything they said the government does wrong.
Exactly.
Like, you're just proving your point, but you're making money doing it, so that's not cool.
It's very much shades of, I mean, and Trump is now the mini dictator of America, but like the other dictators that you see, and they're always run on like anti-corruption campaigns, and we're going to get corruption out of government, drain the swamp. But then it turns out that while they're maybe destroying or executing or banishing or whatever various people that caused problems in the past, they wind up violating so many more human rights and other things in the process, and it just brings the whole thing into darkness. Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like that's where we are with Trump right now. I mean, he's getting away with pretty much whatever he wants. It's frustrating, but we're going to stay hopeful, right?
That's right.
That's right. So,
and I always encourage people to get involved on the local level, because what happens on the local level starts to spread, and the next thing you know, your whole state is doing something good, and that affects the national level. So, focusing on your local politics is so important.
So let me say this then, as someone who has gotten involved in local politics, where does one get started for that? How do you find, like, what does that mean? Like, what's the local politic level that you should be maybe searching for in Google, or what would you do?
I just looked up my county's Democrats, and then from there you can join. Like, most of them don't require you to pay anything. You just show up to the meetings and start getting involved. And I am a precinct committeeman, which basically just means I'm a representative of my party. And when there's issues that we need to address, we go door to door and we talk to people and try to get them as involved in the party as they want to be. We get behind and knock on doors for candidates. So that also is important.
Now,
when we educate people.
When you go door to door, do you literally go door to door and talk to everybody, or do you go by like a list of registered Democrats?
We usually go by a list of registered Democrats, But when we do like the get out the vote, we just go to everyone's door that, we have a list of and just say, hey, I don't care what party you are, get out and vote. So it kind of depends on the issue as well.
I love that strategy because the reality is everybody that's ever surveyed the country can see it. Like, if you got everybody out to vote, the left would win.
Yeah.
Pretty much every time. So I feel like it's kind of an easy argument. And then on the other side, what do we have? We have suppress the vote. We have, let's get less people out there. Let's require voter ID, right? And let's stop former, felons who, despite having paid their debt to society, we should never let them vote again. That's what we wind up seeing on the other side. Because they're scared. They're scared.
Well, they know that, people that aren't white are probably not going to vote for them based on what they've seen on the news. So those are the first people they want to try and silence. And the Democrats say, no, don't silence them. Get them out there.
Right. Yeah. And to that end, I think we would be well served by having a woman or a person of color finally rise to the top. I mean, Barack Obama did. I guess there's that. But that feels like so long ago.
And the problem with him when he ran, everyone was so pumped. And then everyone got really complacent because we were like, oh, the guy we want, he's there. He's good. Let's just sit on our heels and ride this thing out. And so when the next election came around, a lot of people weren't prepared to get out and be vocal again.
Right.
Because we had 8 years of just smooth sailing.
Well, kind of smooth sailing. I mean,
yeah.
When we did lose Congress too halfway through there, and that did not make it easy for Obama to be effective.
Yeah, and that's part of the complacency. We didn't push to really keep what we had.
Yeah. And now we have the Supreme Court to worry about too.
Yes.
Got to keep saying prayers every day for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't care if you're an atheist or not. Let's just do it, people. Let's just pray. Pray to Abigail the doll if you want to. Just pray. Because somewhere that power will keep RBG going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You see pictures of her in the gym. She's trying.
Abigail?
No, RBG.
Is she back in the gym now?
I think I saw recently. I thought I saw pictures of her lifting weights.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. After lung cancer and everything. She is an incredible person.
She is. Another thing to bring up is that there is going to be the census next year, and we need everyone to be counted. And I believe if you go to census.gov, there are jobs where you can become a census taker. They pay a decent amount for you to go door to door and get people to fill out the census.
Oh, I had no idea. I just, I guess I always thought that it was just a form you get in the mail and then you send it back. There are actually people that go door to door.
Yeah, there are. And I think that is easier for people to kind of be inclined to fill it out because you have someone there who's telling you, I'm here in your face, fill it out.
Okay. Is that something you're going to be involved in?
It is. I want to make sure because in my county, we're getting dangerously close to losing what is called home rule. And that would mean instead of my city having a city government, we would just go by whatever the county board decides.
Oh.
We don't like that. So we want to be counted.
So that's based off of the population size that comes out in the census?
Yes.
Oh, that's really useful information. I had no idea.
It also helps to give the county an idea of who lives there, what services they need. It's really important for people to fill out the census. Agreed.
Yeah, I hadn't been thinking too much about that apart from the controversy of the citizenship question. Right now, I'm not even sure where that lies. I think the Supreme Court hasn't issued a ruling yet.
Yeah, and the area where I live in, there's a lot of undocumented citizens. So they're terrified to fill that out if it's there, but we need their numbers counted too because they make up a huge part of our population.
The economy, especially.
Yeah.
And there's even a lot of undocumented people that wind up sending checks to the government to pay taxes because they want to be part of the system.
Yeah. Well, they get a tax ID number. They pay taxes. People don't realize that. So, and they don't get a refund back like citizens do.
Yeah. Yeah. They're in the system, but not fully recognized.
Yeah. The group that I'm in that put together that rally against hate, we're focused on immigration in this county, and we're trying to fight against a lot of the stigma. We're trying to educate people. So it's been really important to be a part of that as well.
Awesome. I mean, I think it's really great that you're just out there trying to make the world a better place. and that's what we're trying to do here, is just in our own special way. We just want to talk to people and sort of try to bring more people together with sort of different viewpoints, but we're all on the same team. And I think that's the part that gets lost sometimes.
We're all humans living on this planet that's slowly dying.
Well, gosh, when you put it that way, we can save it, right? We still have time to turn it around.
I think we can at least prolong the death.
Long enough for us to make a Mars colony, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, here's hoping. But just keep that in mind, people. We're all on the same team. So whether you're a never Bernie or a never Beto or an always Elizabeth or whatever you are, whatever team you're playing for of these 23 candidates, let's just try to keep each other in mind here, because someone's going to come out on top, and we all need to rally behind getting Trump out of office and hopefully flipping the Senate.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think we're safe to wrap things up here. We covered a lot of ground. Good on us.
We sure did.
All of the best candidates that are out there and the interesting policies, and Abigail, the doll who will haunt my dreams for the next few years at least. Please send her our love.
I will.
Because we don't want her angry at us. And everybody listening, you got to check her out. So she is at Abigail_haunted on Twitter. And remember, there are imposter accounts. And where can they find you?
I'm at the Nerdy Vixen on Twitter.
There you go. And that's all one word. There's no underscores or anything, just the Nerdy Vixen.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a fun conversation, and I look forward to seeing how things go in 2020, man. I'm going to stay hopeful, and you're going to be out there getting out the vote, and that's going to make me feel like, more inspired here. I just love knowing that people are out there trying to make things happen.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Well, thank you again for coming on the show.